WWE uses a lot of tricks and secrets to create their iconic moments, like when Kane locked The Undertaker inside of a casket and set it on fire. Those flames were real, so how did The Undertaker escape and survive? Well, after being chokeslammed and having the lid shut, Undertaker escaped through a secret door. At the bottom of the casket, there's a section of padding that can be pushed out. Since the casket was right next to the ring, The Undertaker simply pushed the padding out and crawled under the ring. Kane and Paul Bearer intentionally blocked the view so that no one could see Undertaker escaping the casket. 18 years later, The Undertaker avoided another near-death incident when Shane McMahon jumped from the top of the Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 32. We saw how the dead man survived, but how did Shane avoid killing himself? Well, there was actually an airbag hidden underneath the announcer's table. You could see the bag deflating after McMahon hits the floor. This moment still had to hurt, but at least there was some cushioning. A less painful moment was when Kurt Angle sprayed Stone Cold and an army of wrestlers with milk. You might not believe this, but the entire thing is a lie. Sort of. That is not milk that Kurt Angle is spraying everyone with. Since the arena and all the wrestlers would smell really bad due to the milk spoiling, WWE instead had Kurt Angle spray water. To make it look like the Olympic gold medalist was using milk, they added white coloring to the water. While the milk that came out of the hose was not real, the milk Kurt Angle drank at the end was, which created a problem. The milk stained Angle's shoes, and when he flew on a plane the next day, he smelled awful. There's only ever been 5 buried alive matches in WWE history, but when they do happen, it's pretty special. A wrestler wins when they bury their opponent inside a grave. No wrestler has ever actually died because of this match, so what's the secret? The first trick is that the grave is always built on what's supposed to look like a hill. This is what allows the grave to be very deep. Speaking of which, while the sides of the grave look like dirt, they're actually just fabric. When the wrestler falls into the grave, he'll pull back the fabric and go inside a small hidden room built into the side of the grave. The wrestler's opponent will usually do something dramatic to give the wrestler who's getting buried enough time to get into the hidden room before the dirt fills the grave. The room is just big enough for the wrestler to stand up and move around in. This is how The Undertaker was able to have his hand rise from the ground after the first Buried Alive match in 1996. That's how WWE does a Buried Alive match, but what about when Paul Bearer was buried alive under concrete? You might be surprised, but that was mostly real concrete. However, there was some oatmeal mixed in to give it texture. How WWE pulled off the stunt was, before the show started and before fans were at the arena, WWE filmed Paul Bearer sitting in the tank as they filmed it. Then, during the broadcast, WWE would play these pre-recorded clips to make it look like Paul Bearer was there live and the tank was getting filled. Now, during the actual show, there was someone in the tank, but that was a professional stunt person who was pretending to be Paul Bearer. In order to make it believable, the camera crew had to avoid showing a clear shot of the tank, since fans would have been able to tell that Paul Bearer wasn't actually in there. Okay, this one may not be an iconic moment, but it was memorable. On Raw, Triple H attacked Stone Cold Steve Austin backstage. It was actually a pretty stupid move, as Stone Cold not only got the upper hand, but he locked Triple H in a room with a rattlesnake. That was a real rattlesnake that Triple H was next to, but he wasn't in any danger, keeping both the game and the rattlesnake safe. One of the most shocking and infamous moments in WWE history is when Vince McMahon's limo blew up with him inside of it. As you might guess, WWE pulled the stunt off by pre-recording the explosion. But do you know exactly when the moment goes from live to pre-recorded footage? It happens right after the camera changes from behind Vince McMahon to a wide angle of him entering the limo. WWE did a pretty good job, but you can see in the live shot that there are 2 trailers behind the fence and only one when the limo explodes. Also, the fence changes a bit between the 2 angles, and there's also a tree that wasn't there before. Now, to perform the stunt safely, after McMahon entered the limo, the camera stayed completely still. McMahon then left the vehicle, and once everyone was safe, the explosions went off. WWE cut the footage so it looked like the explosion happened as soon as Vince shut the door. Something else worth mentioning is that for a single frame, you can see part of the device where the explosion came from. One of WWE's most disturbing moments was when Diesel saw himself inside a casket. Whoever is inside looks exactly like Diesel, so how did WWE make it look so real? That is actually the real Diesel or Kevin Nash inside the casket. Raw did not air live at this time, so before or after the show, WWE filmed shots of Diesel actually in the casket and edited them in. The shots were tight enough so that you couldn't tell that they were filmed at a different time. Now we also see shots with both Diesel and his body in the casket. For that, WWE had a dummy that they dressed up to look like Diesel, and since the camera was far enough away, fans couldn't tell. The Undertaker is cool for a lot of reasons. One of them is because of all the supernatural stuff he can do. How the Undertaker's tricks are performed have been mainly kept a secret, but thanks to some fans, the truth was revealed. For example, the Undertaker suddenly appearing in the ring after the lights go out has been exposed. Several fan cameras have captured the Undertaker rolling in and from under the ring when the arena goes black. Other videos have not only shown the Undertaker getting into the ring, but production staff helping him by handing the dead man his hat. Of course, this isn't earth-shattering news, but it does make Undertaker suddenly appearing in the ring look a little less scary when you see how it's done. When wrestlers bleed in WWE, it's usually real blood, although that's not always true. Back in 2016, Triple H attacked Roman Reigns on Raw. The beating was so brutal that it busted open Roman Reigns' head. However, thanks to footage filmed by a fan, we can see how it actually happened. After Triple H slammed Rowan's head into the announcer's table, and while the cameras were off him, Byron Saxton handed the big dog a blood capsule. Then when the game came back, Reigns had blood on his head, appearing as if he had been cut open. It's no surprise that one of the ways WWE makes things seem real is with clever camera tricks. Sometimes, WWE will cut to a different angle at the last second to make a move seem more impactful. However, thanks to one fan sitting in the front row, everyone was able to see one of their camera tricks firsthand. On Raw, Seth Rollins grabbed a chair and began hitting Drew McIntyre with it. Cell phone video from a fan in attendance caught the cameraman squatting down and up. Of course, this was to shake the camera, so that every time the chair connected with Drew's back, it seemed more brutal. Pretty much all the fans we've talked about so far only managed to expose one WWE trick. This next fan, though, uncovered a ton of WWE secrets in just a few snapshots. In 2014, a fan at a WWE show discovered a script for Raw that had been left unattended and decided to take some pictures and share them online. The images show the outline for an entire episode of Monday Night Raw and include information like who is the producer for a particular match, how long each match needs to be, the exact lines wrestlers are supposed to say,
"It is futile to resist,"
and more. Hopefully no one found out which WWE employee left the script unattended, because Vince McMahon probably would have something he would have liked to say.
I am no pervert.
Wait, that's not right.
Yeah!
That's more like it. With how many matches and segments are on a WWE show, the ring has to be adjusted throughout the event. The ring crew usually needs to be pretty quick too, since the majority of WWE shows are on live TV. The actual changing of the ring apron and canvas is usually something WWE doesn't show, but thanks to fan cameras, it's possible to see how they do it. While this isn't really a secret, sometimes the ring crew cut things pretty tight. For example, at the 2017 Payback pay-per-view, the production staff were changing the ring for the Cruiserweight match. They might have been short on time or not going as fast, because Neville was making his way to the ring while the crew were still getting it set up. Luckily, the WWE employees got out just before the champion got in the ropes. If you watch this on TV though, you probably had no idea how close WWE was cutting it. Signs are an iconic part of wrestling. It's a way for anyone to show their support for a wrestler, or just speak their mind. A majority of signs that you see in the crowd are real and are created by actual fans. However, WWE will make their own signs and put them in the audience to help push their agenda. During an episode of Raw in 2018, fans shared that WWE employees were handing out signs that said, "We want women's tag championships." Just a couple of months later, WWE would announce the creation of tag team titles for the women's division. Have you ever wondered why some wrestlers' legs look weird? Well, that's because mainly female wrestlers wear sheer tights under their ring gear. These tights are thick enough that you can't see through them, and there's a few reasons why wrestlers wear them. One reason is to protect a wrestler's legs from getting mat burns. Similarly, the tights hide bruises and other imperfections so that wrestlers look their best when they perform in front of fans. The sheer tights also prevent wardrobe malfunctions in case a wrestler's attire gets pulled during a match. Wrestlers pick a pair of tights that match their skin tone, and, with the right lighting, it's hard to tell that they're wearing an extra piece of fabric under their attire. The microphone is an iconic part of WWE, but often overlooked. It's also fake! Sort of. While the microphones used in the arena are real, the ones you see backstage are not. Instead, the audio during a backstage interview is picked up by a boom mic that's not seen on camera. The microphone that the interviewer is holding is just a prop. The reason WWE does this is so that the audio gets picked up clearly, even when there are multiple wrestlers being interviewed, and if the interviewer needs to walk away, viewers at home can still hear.
John Cena, because you can't see him. Get it? Get it? He goes.
Well, there's cameras in here. It'd be kind of weird if there were cameras in the locker room if we didn't have an interview.
All right, okay.
Actually, I'm getting pretty good at this whole interview show thing. I think they're going to give me my own show on the WWE Network.
One way to look like a cocky son of a gun is to chew gum as you walk to the ring. While it looks cool, there's actually practical reasons why wrestlers do this. One is that chewing gum keeps saliva flowing in your mouth. This helps prevent wrestlers' mouths from getting dry so they can talk clearly with each other and plan out moves during the match. Additionally, wrestlers can also spit out the gum after getting hit by a big move to make it seem like a tooth or spit got knocked out of their mouth, which makes the match seem even more brutal. Another thing wrestlers like to do before walking out is wet their hair. In addition to making wrestlers look cool, there are other reasons why WWE stars do this. Since wet hair is heavier than dry hair, it'll move and get whipped around when wrestlers get hit. This makes the moves look more impactful, which makes the match more enjoyable for fans. Another reason wrestlers wet their hair is to literally stay cool. In addition to how physically demanding wrestling is, wrestlers also perform under bright, warm spotlights. To help keep them from overheating, wrestlers will wet their hair before coming out, or in Triple H's case, as you're walking towards the ring. Sometimes, wrestlers do this to keep themselves from being burned. Goldberg would pour water on his head before going out so the pyre he walked through didn't stain as much. Jeff Hardy also made sure he was wet before getting blasted in the face by pyro in 2009. After you see this, you'll never look at Randy Orton's power slam the same way again. Watch these two clips and see if you notice anything different.
Trying to reclaim the United States Championship Sunday!
Of course, in the first clip, Randy Orton successfully performed the power slam and was unsuccessful in the second. But take a look at Orton's hands. When he hits the power slam, he claps his hands right before performing the move. Notice how in the second clip, there is no clap. This isn't an isolated incident. Take a look at these clips. If Randy Orton is going to give his opponent a power slam, he'll clap his hands. If he isn't, then no clap. This tells the Viper's opponent whether they need to take the move or not. This isn't the only hand signal that wrestlers use. When a wrestler performs a DDT, their opponent needs to know if they'll take the move or counter it. The wrestler executing the DDT tells their opponent what to do with a slap on the back. Like the power slam, a slap on the back tells the wrestler to take the DDT. If there is no slap, then the opponent needs to counter. An example of this happened during Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair's match at Extreme Rules 2021. The first time Bliss went to perform a DDT, there was no slap and Flair countered. However, the second time Alexa went to perform the move, she slapped Charlotte's back and the DDT was successful. WWE wrestlers use many other hand signals during matches. When Chris Jericho and Triple H were having a match, the game sneakily communicated he wanted to give Jericho the boot by tapping his quad as Y2J was running toward him. On an episode of Raw in 2014, Dean Ambrose and John Cena were wrestling in the main event. Raw was about to go off the air, so Dean Ambrose made a signal to Cena to speed things up, since they only had 6 minutes left. At WrestleMania 22, right before Shawn Michaels hit Vince McMahon with an elbow drop from a ladder, the referee squeezed McMahon's leg to tell the boss to brace for impact. Years later, at WrestleMania 29, CM Punk was accompanied by Paul Heyman for his match against The Undertaker. During the fight, the dead man grabbed Heyman by the throat. Punk then attacked Taker with a clothesline to break it up. Since Undertaker had his back turned and couldn't see CM Punk, Paul Heyman squeezed Taker's shoulder so he knew to turn around and take the clothesline. A common spot in tag team matches is where the legal wrestler is crawling on the mat and is trying to reach their partner to tag out. However, the legal wrestler usually can't see where their opponents are and won't know when precisely to tag out. To help them out, the wrestler on the ring apron will make a signal with their hand. If their palm is facing down, it tells the legal wrestler not to tag in. But when the palm faces up, that's the signal to make the tag. Now, you won't see every WWE wrestler do this. The reason might be that not all wrestlers are trained the same way. Another reason is that some spots don't require precise timing, so there's no reason to make any signals. WWE referees also have their own secret hand signals. After a wrestler takes a big spot, like going through a table, the referee will check on them. While it looks like the ref is just talking to the wrestler, they're actually putting their hand in the wrestler's hand. If the wrestler squeezes the referee's hand, that means the wrestler is okay. After getting the squeeze, the referee will raise a closed fist into the air. This tells the backstage personnel that everything is okay. If the wrestler doesn't squeeze sees the referee's hand, the ref will make an X sign with both of their arms. If the injury is pretty obvious, the referee will just make the X sign without checking in with the wrestler. At the first Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, Randy Orton and John Cena faced off for the WWE Championship. The two had a solid match, but about midway into the contest, a WWE secret was accidentally exposed. Randy Orton hit John Cena with his vintage inverted headlock backbreaker, which caused a blade to fall onto the mat. And nope, that wasn't from Cena's Gillette sponsorship. This tiny razor is what a wrestler would use if they wanted to bleed during the match. The referee quickly picked up the blade, and the performance continued. Neither wrestler ended up bleeding during the match, but it's unknown if it was because Cena lost his blade. Hell in a Cell just has a habit of exposing secrets, even since the beginning. At the 1987 Bad Blood pay-per-view, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker went face-to-face in the first ever Hell in a Cell match. Before the two stars made their entrances, Sergeant Slaughter, who was the on-screen commissioner, checked under the ring to make sure nobody was hiding underneath it. The camera went in for a close shot and accidentally revealed an amplifier. If you don't know, WWE places sound equipment under the ring so that when a wrestler hits the mat, it sounds even more impressive.
And his feet just hit the roof of the cage.
Luckily for WWE, by the end of the match, everybody had forgotten about what they saw underneath the ring. Botch and Sin Cara go together like peanut butter and jelly, but the Faceless One is completely innocent when it comes to this mistake. When Sin Cara debuted in April 2011, he jumped into the ring and fought off Sheamus. Unfortunately, right before the luchador dove in, the cameraman accidentally revealed a bit too much and showed the trampoline Sin Cara jumped off of to make his entrance. The WWE camera crew got better at hiding this as Sin Cara continued to wrestle, but the masked wrestler's career didn't exactly start off on the right angle. At WrestleMania 7, Jake the Snake Roberts took on the model Rick Martel in a blindfold match. Unfortunately, the illusion that both men were completely blind fell apart before the bell had even rung. While the referees were getting the blindfolds on each competitor, Jake pulled part of the cloth away, revealing two spots they could see from. It didn't help that the camera was pointed directly at him either. Everything else went smoothly, but that botch at the beginning didn't help anyone suspend their disbelief. This next one's a little different, but I think you'll enjoy it. Back in March of 2020, WWE held its first show in the Performance Center with no fans in attendance. Despite the lack of crowd noise, everything was going fine until he went to a commercial break. Bayley and Sasha Banks were wrestling Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, and once it was time for an ad break, everyone decided to stop wrestling. After all, nobody was watching. Except that people were. On some of the international feeds, SmackDown returned a bit too early, and all four wrestlers were out of character and not wrestling. In the clip, the four women can be seen talking to each other, while the referee gets the ropes and the turnbuckles. It lasts for about a minute, and then they begin getting ready to start the match again. Being that this happened in 2020, it wasn't a huge deal, but imagine if something like this happened back in the 70s or 80s. That would have been a pretty big secret that got exposed. The Hell in a Cell match between Seth Rollins and Edge was one of the best of the year. The rivalry had become incredibly heated, and the two went all out in their final match. Tons of weapons were used, including a wrench that Seth used to try and attack Edge's eye. After teaming with Bad Bunny at WrestleMania, Damian Priest went back to being solo and took on The Miz and John Morrison in a handicap match. At one point, Priest performed an awesome flip over the top rope and out of the ring. Unfortunately, Priest's leg accidentally hit John Morrison in the head. Right after the move, cameras caught John Morrison quietly telling Damian Priest everything was good, as well as Morrison giving his opponent a love pat before getting back into character and selling the move. In addition to playing their role in the match, WWE referees also handle most of the communication. If there's something the WWE producers and directors want the wrestlers to know, they'll tell the referee by talking to him or her through the referee's earpiece. An example of this was shown live on Raw. Elias and Jackson Riker were facing off in a Symphony of Destruction match. While fighting, Elias accidentally got busted open. WWE has a no blood policy and likes to avoid it when they can, especially during their PG shows. After Elias began to bleed, someone backstage told the referee to tell Elias to wipe off the blood, which Elias did immediately. This apparently wasn't communicated to the production crew, and the whole thing was shown on camera. WWE likes to make their wrestlers seem larger than life. There's all kinds of tricks and secrets they used to do this, and one of them was exposed live on Raw. Rey and Dominic Mysterio were being interviewed backstage when Austin Theory interrupted. The camera pulled back a bit too far and revealed that the interviewer was bending his knees in order to make the wrestlers seem taller. This is one of the reasons why WWE likes to hire women for backstage interview roles, since they usually don't have to adjust their height to make the wrestlers appear taller.